A quick note before we begin. If you enjoy this podcast, please head over to theauthorinside.you.com and click the subscribe button. Thanks. And now, on with the show.
You're listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and have your work build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Inside You. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Today, our guest is Laura Ranger, author of Royalty. Laura's been telling stories since she was a child, and now she's a mother of one and grandmother of three, and the owner of Foundations Publishing Company. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Matt and Leah. I appreciate the time.
Well, thank you for joining us. You've been telling stories since you were a child. How did your storytelling lead to becoming an author?
Well, actually, when my daughter was 2 and 3 years old, she got a lot of ear infections, and we were always at the doctor's office. And, you know, the doctor's office is never a short wait.
No.
And back then, they didn't have toys in their waiting room or anything like that. So we played a game where I would start a story, and I would stop at some point, and then she would pick up and she would add into the story, and we would go back and forth to pass the time. When I was a child, my grandmother never wanted me to just tell her anything simply. She would pull things out of me and draw out questions, and that kind of taught me how to put everything into story form. So I seemed to come by it naturally. And then when I was doing stories with my daughter, and we would go back and forth, very often she would participate until we hit a particular story that she always wanted to go back to that story. She wanted me to tell her more of the story, and that story will actually be coming out later in this year.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's called Lessons, and I penned it about 22 years ago. But honestly, I became so afraid of success that I put it away. I had so many people tell me, oh, that's a great book. We really want to read that. You've got to get that published and that sort of thing. I really became paralyzed with fear. And so I put it away. And many years later, I met my fiance, and let him read it. He's an author also. And he said, this is a great book. You've got to finish this book and get it out there. And I brought other projects out first. And when they were met with fairly good success, I found a publisher right away, and was able to get 2 books published through the Melange Publishing.
Great.
And I was very excited. Then I thought, you know, I really need to go back to what started it all, my writing, and that was Lessons. So I'm finishing that out, and that'll go out later this year.
And what do you think it was that prevented you from sharing the book, even though people were giving you such positive feedback?
I think I had a fear of being thrown into the limelight. Back years and years ago, I was in a singing group, and we sang for 2 presidents and traveled a lot, and we were, we cut an album, and we were, had TV shows and things like that we did. And as it grew, I noticed all of that attention and that being pulled in so many different directions. And if this is the reception it's getting with just a couple of my friends, what would happen if it's really out there? And then, of course, you hear and see different things like E.L. James and J.K. Rowling and whatever, and you think, oh, could I handle all of that? I don't know if I could. Of course, my faith is very different than it was way back then. So I see that God doesn't put more on you than what he knows you can handle at the time. And, you know, my first 2 books show that because I don't have the people banging down my door to get them.
So it was more like a fear of success.
Absolutely, it was a fear of success. And I think too many authors who have a good story do things that they subconsciously sabotage themselves when it's really not necessary, because what they believe will happen and what the reality are 2 totally different things.
So do you work with authors now with your publishing company? Do you work with authors
Yes, absolutely. We have, I think we're up to about 30 authors. And that's because so much of writing a book is marketing that work. They don't think of how much energy and effort goes into getting that book out there for somebody other than their family and friends to know about.
Or what about fear of rejection? That's what I feel, fear of rejection, you know.
Absolutely. There are several stories that I've come across that I will ask them to formally submit, and they won't even do it if I'm asking them for it because they're afraid I'll reject it.
Oh, geez.
And we have a children's author who was going to do all of it on her own through CreateSpace and whatnot, but I do formatting, and I was hired by someone to format her book. As I was formatting it, I loved the story. I really liked the illustrations, and I asked how, does she have a publisher? And they said, no, she's doing it herself, and she's a first-time author.
Wow.
Okay. So I said, well, would you tell her that I'm interested in this book? She came back, and I am telling you what, she is our biggest success so far.
Wow, your biggest success? Fantastic.
That's right. But she's out there marketing her book, spreading the word, and getting people to notice her book. I initially told her she was an international author because we published this book in both English and Italian.
Oh.
And she could not accept that. She kept saying, oh, my family's going to think. And I said, it really doesn't matter. The fact is, you are an international author.
Great, yeah. Cool. Well,
now she says, I'm an international author.
Well, Matt always tries to tell me and our children that everything is a no until you try. So why not try? I mean, unless you try, you're never going to find out.
And what's the worst that can happen? I mean, if someone says no to you, they say no to you, and
but it is hard. It's still
I understand, but you gotta get some no's before you get some yeses.
So
I love that.
What about the publishing? So you said that you had other projects, you wrote them, and then you got them published.
Yes, I did. I had my fiance and I did Road together. It's a kind of it's a wild ride, but that was a challenge. And I said, I really don't think I can write with anybody again. That tested our mettle. But I took that and I really believed in it, and since it wasn't fully me, I didn't have a problem stepping out there.
Great.
So I'd heard about Melange, I researched them, and I really wanted to be published with them. I submitted to several different publishing companies, but my intention was Melange. And I got a yes from them after 4 weeks of waiting, which usually the wait is 6 to 8 weeks.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I penned Deception a year later, I went back to that publisher and I said, I've got another book. Would you be interested? And she said, well, send it to me directly and let me just take a glance and I'll let you know from there. She sent back and she said, okay, I read the whole thing. Send it.
Great.
So,
that's got to make you feel great.
It did. And that was released last June. Now, a year ago in February, my fiance and I opened Foundations Publishing. And here I was a few months later releasing Deception under another publishing house. But I had contracted with them. I didn't feel I had any choice. But actually this month, I went to the owner and I asked her if it would be possible to get the rights back to those 2 books because I own Foundations now and I would like to publish them under my company. And she returned the rights. I'm very excited.
Wow,
We've got them all ready to be released in June.
Oh, that's
Congratulations.
fantastic. So why did you open your own publishing company?
Oh my goodness.
Did I just open a can of worms?
Most days I wonder. Every morning before I have a day job also, and before I go to my day job, my fiance brings me coffee and we have coffee and chit chat, and any prayer requests or prayer needs that we know of, we bring up at that time and we pray together and then move on with the day. Well, it was January 18th, a Monday, and after we prayed, he said, we need to open a publishing company. I said, I've got to go to work. I'm out of here. And later he sent me a message and he said, now I'm telling you, this is really strong on my heart. We need to, and I said, I don't know the first thing about that business. No, we don't. Because I knew he didn't either.
Yeah.
So we put together a whole list of questions. And honestly, we didn't even have a clue how we would be paid. We didn't get that. We didn't know any of that. And he had been published through a publishing company, also a different publishing company. So since we had never done the Create Space thing or anything like that, we had no clue where to start. So
it's overwhelming.
It was crazy. So we wrote down a list of questions. I had a whole page full of them. And
I bet.
I went home, I handed it to him. I said, you get me answers to these questions and I'll think about it. Well, that was it. And off we went.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, last year we made a whole lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
But the people behind us, the people that are in this with us, our marketing director, our editors, our cover artists, plus our knowledge, those people were wonderful to keep us going and keep telling us, we believe in this company. You need to keep going. Foundations is a little bit different from most publishing companies, let alone small presses, in that our motto we really live by, and that is where the author comes first.
Yes, I saw that on your website. Okay.
When Steve and I got published, it was simply, here's your book, go sell. That's it.
Okay.
We had no idea where to start, what to do, how to do it. The biggest tool that authors need is to know how to market their work. So we started out with various PAs, personal assistants. What we found was, other than doing it on Facebook, a lot of them really didn't know what else to do. We hit on an absolute gem of a marketer. And she is actually how I got connected to you. But Tony is out there, and the other thing we found was in the book world, we believe that everything has just gone digital. Not true. People still want paper in their hands. They want an actual book to be able to open. So what we did was we started training our authors to get out there and do book signings, find their little bookstores, local bookstores, and get in there. Those bookstores want them in there because they're dying. So they want the publicity and the invitation for outsiders to come into their store. So if they can advertise they've got an author there who is selling and signing their books, it helps those little stores.
So then you just tell the authors to contact the bookstore owner and say, hey, I'm interested in doing a book signing, and then usually
Exactly.
it's met with success?
Absolutely. Now, all of our authors, and I can go right down through my list, and I can tell you which ones are my successful authors and which ones not so much, because the successful ones are out there signing books. They're having engagements. They're getting to the public, and the public is getting the word out.
Great.
So we say, go to your local bookstores, go to your local libraries, and then if you check around, there are a lot of places that will have community involvement things. Well, go to those coordinators and say, I've got a book and I would love to bring some books and sign and sell
like a
to
Chamber
your
of Commerce
people.
thing, like when they have
Absolutely.
like this, the businesses all get together for a show for the community or whatever. Okay, great
Exactly.
idea. That's
It's
a good
an excellent idea.
Well, we talked to one author who went to the local grocery store and asked about getting her books into their store, and that worked out well for her.
What a wonderful idea. I did not think of that. That's a
because
great idea.
Yeah, the local grocery stores want to help local people. So
I imagine it wasn't a big chain, but
No,
still, she knew the people at the grocery store, told them she was writing a book, and then when the book came out, she said, "Hey, can I bring some copies?" And they said, "Sure." And she had a book signing at the grocery store.
yeah.
That's great.
I know, because
love that.
there's probably lots of people at the grocery store who haven't been to a bookstore in a long
Yes,
time.
that's
and
true.
So a great way.
And a lot of them don't even know where their local stores are anymore.
Right.
Bookstores. We have in the whole of our county, which is a very large county here in Mississippi, we have one bookstore. One.
Wow.
Yeah. Even the bigger bookstores went out.
Right, right.
Yeah, how sad.
So it really is. However, we just recently read an article that says that their actual books are coming back around.
Great, great.
So, Laura, what would be your best advice to somebody who's writing a book or kind of stuck with writing their book and not knowing where to go next?
First, they really need to stop having that fear of rejection, because what if they are accepted? Foundations is always, if someone sends us a manuscript that is poor writing or too many holes, that sort of thing, we always send back to them and say, these are the places that we see you need some work on, and when you're done, send it back to us again. So we don't believe that just knocking somebody down and throwing them out is the answer.
Right. Everyone needs that support.
Right. And we also have what we call the Foundation's Author Hangout, where it's a closed group where we bring in all of our authors, and they're allowed, that gives them a platform to be able to share with each other and maybe their new projects that they're working on, or some marketing idea, or whatever. You've got to network with other authors. You've got to. Or marketers. Pick their brains, ask questions, and if you live by all these people in the past that people throw out, oh, this one submitted to this many publishing companies before so-and-so picked them up and this and that. Well, yeah, but I submitted to one I really wanted and got it.
Right.
So you have to at least take that chance. And you absolutely cannot be afraid of success, because in this business, it takes a long time to build a brand. And that's how we address every one of our authors. You've got to create a brand and then build on that brand. Establish that brand and then get noticed. And it takes a while.
Well, it sounds nice. I never thought about that some people might get picked up by a publisher, but then if you're left alone or if you don't have that support, it has to be not as, that's kind of scary and also kind of sad. So that sounds wonderful that your company supports people. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. We can't do it alone. We were proof. Steve and I went nowhere with our books that were published through publishers. Okay, great. We got publishers, but they don't know how to market. They didn't know what to do next. Okay. They just made the book, and there you go.
Interesting.
So you said when people send you something at foundations, so you look at everything people send you?
We do.
Wow.
Between all of us, our marketer does editing. We have 2 great editors, and then Steve and myself. If one of us is too busy, then we share them around so that everything gets seen. Every once in a while, one of us will have, well, what do you think about this? I'm on the fence or whatnot. We've had, me personally, I've had probably a half a dozen where I believed in their story, but the writing was lacking. And the other thing is that your work really needs to be edited before you send it to a publisher. People go, well, you've got editors, then why don't...
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Look, you at least need to read through it after you write it.
Yeah. I would hope people would do that. Yeah.
But the idea is that if
you'd be surprised.
If someone's going to send you their manuscript, you want them to think that it's ready to be published right now.
Exactly.
Right?
Knowing that there might be other
This is
things.
the best I can do.
Oh, absolutely.
Now look
Now I
at it
need
and
a
tell me what you
professional.
think.
Yeah.
I got
Right.
it.
And what I've done is I've taken the ones that really need polish and work. I've taken the first chapter, turned on track changes, made changes, and sent it back and said, if you can do the rest of it similar to this, then resubmit.
Oh, that's very generous.
Well, we really believe in authors, and there are so many really good stories that are yet to be told.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful company. Thank you for providing this service.
Right.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So where
Getting the word out.
Yeah. So how can our listeners best reach you?
Well, the 2 best sources are my website, which is www.laura, L-A-U-R-A, Ranger, R-A-N-G-E-R, .com. Then the other is through our foundations, which is www.foundationsbooks.net.
We will have that in our show notes.
Okay.
Excellent. And then I imagine that you can also contact you there.
Oh, absolutely. My email address is on both of those sites. Yes, you can, not a problem to get to me through either one of those places.
Right, and purchase all the books. Purchase
Absolutely.
your books
I have buy links to all of my books on my website. We always tell our authors that they really need to have a book trailer, and it needs to be 1 to 2 minutes long because people are visual. So you put a trailer out there, a little movie type of deal, and people can quickly see what your book is about. And all of our authors have their trailers are connected with their books.
Excellent. I imagine that works well on Facebook.
It sure does.
Well, thank you, Laura, for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming on The Author Inside You.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast, and until next time,
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.